Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we'll be doing a box office breakdown of this past weekend on this blessed Palm Sunday, as Sonic the Hedgehog 2 opens to a massive $71 million domestically, beating the original, which, remember, came out pre-pandemic times. Of course, that narrative was blown apart long ago thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home, while the film Ambulance is apparently a misfire, at least according to Deadline. But we'll dive further into those numbers and see whether or not it's truly a misfire or whether or not it's an issue in lack of marketing. And I'm going to go with the latter. Anyway, before going any further, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you never time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. Also, shout out to my Minds community and also the community over on Rumble, as well, as I do upload to both of those locations as well in the video format. Sometimes Minds gives me some trouble, but it's a great community over there. Anyway, as you can see from the headline, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 indeed has beaten the original Sonic's opening weekend, making $71 million. Very, very impressive, to say the least. It goes on to say that it's outstripping the three-day opening results of the 2020 original, which, keep in mind, was over a holiday weekend with $71 million for Jim Carrey. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is his biggest domestic opener on a three-day basis, beating the $68 million start of Bruce Almighty in 2003. It's a random factoid that I don't think really should matter at all. I don't know why they're even mentioning it. They then go on to talk about how we can look at what is going on with the film Ambulance, and saying here the weekend's other wide opener, Michael Bay's Ambulance from Universal, saw 3.3 million on Saturday, the same as yesterday for 8.7 million in fourth place. This is as of Saturday night. Those who bought tickets love the movie with an A- cinema score, which, remember, does not mean a damn thing. Post track, a little bit, I would say, better track record there with them. It says 77% positive, 61% recommending the actual film. Older guy heavy as expected at 62%, 77% over 25, with 49% over 35 years old. So a very high male demographic, and a lot of people are indeed supporting this film, liking it, but not as many are recommending it. And I'm wondering if part of that might be because this film was indeed an IMAX exclusive release, which very well could mean that some people are not recommending it because they don't think it's worth the price. And really, if any film had been in the theater that they were going to, that they would have said the same thing, because they would have thought, hey, I don't think it's worth paying that extra amount of money for the IMAX ticket. Just one thing to keep in mind. If you actually look to the numbers themselves, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was $71 million, coming in easily at number one, whereas Morbius, on the other hand, 74% drop domestically, making $10.2 million, bringing its domestic to a very sad $57 million. And even though, and I've been saying this now since it came out, it's very likely to break even and to make its money back, with this kind of a drop-off, if this is consistently happening on and in the weeks ahead, especially as there are other films set to come out and more films that are set to create competition for not just Sonic the Hedgehog, but also for Morbius, things could look really dire for this film. This film dropped like a giant weight. And obviously, a lot of it has to do with a very negative word of mouth, because the film is just not very good. I know that there are some people who are trying to say it's not as bad as people say, and hey, at least it's not woke, but that does not make the film good. And clearly, this massive drop-off is kind of proving that point, not to mention a lackluster opening weekend. The Lost City continues to drop as well, dropping another 38%, as it's starting to lose out on some theaters. Remember when Deadline was trying to spin this as a massive success because this was the #1 female-led comedy of the pandemic era. They again made up a random thing to make this film seem successful, trying to push again that gender agenda, even though the film itself, from what I've been told, doesn't actually do that, and is actually entertaining. Again, based on people who have seen it, I have not, and it really just doesn't appeal to me all that much. Just Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock together, I don't know. Just doesn't seem like my cup of tea. Ambulance came in at number 4 with $8.7 million, where the Batman dropped to the number 5 spot, making $6.5 million, another 41% drop, as this is also starting to leave theaters and really has capped out making its money. I think that at this point, right now, the ceiling for this is going to be somewhere between $800 million worldwide and $850 million, which is definitely a success, and it's definitely making money, but definitely far from the billion-dollar potential that this film had initially going in. And I think that the word of mouth on this has gotten progressively worse as more people have spent some time with it, have thought about it. I don't think the film is aging nearly as well or as gracefully as originally some may have thought. I myself still hold to my B+ rating. However, I am definitely hearing a lot of the criticisms that people are bringing towards this film and definitely think them to be valid. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once from A24 jumped 462% because it finally actually opened in over 1,000 screens, so still very limited in its release. But when you add 1,200 screens to 1,200 total already, again, you can see why you're having a massive jump, because it was only in, less than 100 screens, and now it's in more than 1,000. So you're going to see an exponential growth in that way. So doing very well, though. Even at the limited number of screens, its per theater number is pretty solid. This is definitely a film that I'm interested in checking out. So if it hopefully is available post-Easter, I might be able to actually go see this one. It does look interesting, dealing with a multiverse outside of a comic book film. Coming at number 7 is Uncharted with $2.6 million. Again, this one also starting to leave theaters, basically maxing out where it has made money. Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is still at 850 million. What am I saying? 850 screens, and is still making a little bit of money, dropping to the number 8 spot. Spider-Man No Way Home, even after 17 weeks, still in the top 10, making $625,000, and a lot of that is because it's just dropped out of a lot of theaters. And this is no surprise, because this does come out on physical release on Tuesday, and so a lot of people have already seen it, and anyone who has not seen it yet, who wants to see it, likely are already pre-ordering it, or already have seen it on digital, or have sailed the high seas, or whatever, so it makes a lot of sense why this film is dropping off as much as it is at this point in time. But hey, it did very, very strong for a long time. It made over $1 million for 16 straight weeks, every single weekend. So, kudos to them. However, it looks like it's going to miss out on that $1.9 billion that I thought it had in the bag. And obviously, competition is going to do that to you. And then the Triple R is number 10. I don't really know much about that one. Sing 2 also, as I've mentioned in almost every video, 16 weeks. And just because it's dropped out of over 1,000 screens, we're seeing this now drop out of the top 10. But this one also did incredibly well. Looking at the individual films, we look at Sonic the Hedgehog, and not only did it make $71 million domestically, but it also made $70 million internationally, making it $141 million total opening worldwide, which is very impressive for this film. And if we go ahead and look at the box office at only being $90 million for the budget, this film is well on its way to being able to break even. If we try and put this up against the previous film from 2020, we can look and see that they had similar budgets. Of course, this is without adjusting for inflation, but let me go ahead and click that little thing because it definitely changes things a little bit. Looks like maybe it's not working altogether, because normally it does also change the budget. But obviously, the budget for the first Sonic the Hedgehog film will be a little bit higher, even though it's only been 2 years. There's a lot of inflation going on even right now. So Lord knows you got a lot more for your $90 million back even just 2 years ago than you currently do. This one obviously had a much wider opening, but look at that opening domestic weekend, $58 million versus $71 million. So very impressive numbers for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, even though I personally was not a big fan of it. This film is definitely doing well. It's already, after 1 week, almost to half of what Sonic the Hedgehog made in the entirety of its run, and so this is definitely a good sign for Sonic the Hedgehog 2. One could argue that the first Sonic the Hedgehog had a decent opening, but then COVID hit not long after that, and so therefore the long-range impact on Sonic the Hedgehog's first film might indicate why the film only made $300 million. Maybe it could have made more, and whatever Sonic 2 makes is going to be an indication of what it could have potentially have made. It still remains to be seen on that. The main point is Sonic 2 is doing much better. 26 million versus 20 million on the first Friday. For Saturday, 26 versus 20, and then 17 versus 16. So almost close, pretty close in the Sunday numbers, but clearly a bigger number for the first Friday and Saturday. And this, as they mentioned in the Deadline article, happened over a holiday weekend, which means that this one had a much better opportunity to make some money. So kudos to them for being able to pull this off. Whereas Morbius, not so much kudos there. 126.3 million is currently where this film stands. And if we let's see, go ahead and let's put this up against Birds of Prey. Let's actually see if there's much of a difference here, because I'm actually intrigued by this just a little bit. So at the same point of its release, Birds of Prey actually had a higher domestic number. So I think that should kind of speak volumes, because Birds of Prey was complete trash. Morbius is bad. I think Birds of Prey is actually a lot worse. I would much rather watch Morbius again. There's a lot more rewatchability factor with Morbius than with Birds of Prey. However, clearly the word of mouth on Morbius is that bad to the point of this film doing worse than what Birds of Prey did. So interesting numbers there. We, of course, will be following that. The difference between these two is that Birds of Prey had a higher number and the 200 higher as far as the actual budget of the film goes. And it seems that internationally, Morbius might be doing a little bit better, so we'll see if it's able to pass $200 million by the end of its run. It's definitely possible, so Morbius could end up winning out in the long run worldwide, but we'll just have to wait and see at this point in time. One of the films that I did actually want to put this up again was Venom: Let There Be Carnage, since that's a film that's a little bit closer here, and just again to show you why there is such a huge difference. At this point in the release, Venom 2 was at $141 million versus Birds of Prey and Morbius. And also, this is once again, I think, proving the point that I was making about how people were trying to use the pandemic as an excuse for so many months, especially when, Spider-Man No Way Home came out and they were still trying to use it as an excuse, even just a week prior for films like West Side Story. You look at these two films, which are both pre-pandemic films, and you can see very clearly that Venom 2, which happened technically during the pandemic, was still able to perform quite well at this point. So, again, shout out to Venom: Let There Be Carnage for having a much stronger opening weekend versus those films. The Lost City, yeah, remember they made up the record for it? It's not even going to crack $100 million. Won't even do that. $69.8 million is the current number for that. Ambulance, which is a newer film from Michael Bay, which I have tickets to go see tomorrow, so I'll have a review up hopefully tomorrow evening. $31.1 million opening for this film. This did get a earlier open in some foreign markets, so that's why the foreign total is actually a little bit higher there. So that might actually kind of be a little bit of fool's gold, because if that was just the actual opening weekend, if that was just the past 3 days, then that would actually be a really strong start for this film to make its money back, since it only cost around $40 million to make. But because that is about a week's worth instead of just 3 days, it might not be nearly as good of a sign. But we'll have to wait and see what this film does during the week, both domestically and internationally. But definitely not a strong outcome for the film, but it also does not need to make a whole lot of money in the grand scheme of things for it to be able to hit its break-even point. And if the film is good, I will let people know about it. The Batman, $735.1 million at this point. So as I mentioned before, at this point, losing theaters. People who've wanted to see it have already seen it. It's facing stiff competition and will continue to face competition over the next couple of weeks, especially as we get into the summer season beginning in May. It's crazy to think how fast this year is already going by. So $800 million is probably the tap out on this one, probably the highest that this could hope for. Though I would say that I will allow that to be upwards of $850 million, though I doubt it's going to hit to that number. Probably 800 is probably more so a more realistic cap there. Uncharted, $383.4 million, losing theaters at this point, and it's made its money back. So, hey, they should be happy with that, even though it didn't make all that much money. $1.89 billion for Spider-Man No Way Home. Again, 1.9 just out of reach, just barely out of reach, but it's going to be available on home video. I cannot wait to watch it again. Cannot wait for the wife and I to watch it, because I think that she will actually really enjoy it. Sing 2, pretty much ending its year, ending its performance, ending its marathon performance, having very, very strong legs all throughout the pandemic era and all throughout the last 16 weeks. Making over $400 million. So kudos to them for being able to pull that off. Definitely very impressive there. So we actually look at the numbers as they currently stand. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 at $141 million means the film is right now at around a $50 million loss, which it will easily make up in the next week, if not 2 weeks. I think this film will break even and hit its break-even point probably by the end of next weekend, if I had to guess. But if not by next weekend, then definitely by the third week of release. Whereas Ambulance at $31.1 million is only at $41 million in a loss, but the chances of this film doing very well in the second weekend at this point is not looking all that good. Whereas Morbius, with it now at $126.3 million worldwide, we can now make some projections on this film. So that 126 means that my minimum projection on the film is at around $180 million, whereas the best chance that this film has is to reach around $252 million, which I think is very unlikely, seeing that this film had a massive drop-off, and I suspect it will continue to have massive drop-offs. The average there, though, is over $200 million worldwide, which would put this over Birds of Prey, so the chance of it beating Birds of Prey is better than it not, but if the numbers are dropping off a lot, then it could be bad news for Morbius, because with a $75 million budget, it only needs to make $187.5 million to break even, meaning that if this film does even worse than expected, it could end up being a financial failure, though maybe just by a little. But again, if the numbers are even worse than I have projected. So again, I'm assuming a 70% is the worst case scenario, but let's say the first 2 weeks compared to the final result is over 70%. That means that this number would end up being higher, and there are films that are definitely able to do that. This one might. We'll have to wait and see. It could also make a little bit of profit as well. So I think that Sony would not be surprised if they try and pull some late marketing tactics, or hey, you'll get a bonus poster or something like that, just for them to be able to try and save some face on this film, as it is set to be a massive failure. Lost City now losing theaters is at $69 million of loss, and as I previously mentioned, this film is going to be a financial flop, and sure enough, it is on track to do just that. The Batman at $735 million is at $141 million in net profits, whereas Uncharted is at $50 million net gain profits. And lastly, the films to, of course, talk about is Spider-Man No Way Home with its $1.89 billion, putting it at $834 million in net gain profit, which is just an insane number. But those are what we have for this weekend. So Sonic the Hedgehog 2, did you like it? Have you talked about it? Have you recommended it to other people? I personally have not, but it sounds like the huge portion of people who have seen it are recommending it, so I would not be surprised if this film has a pretty strong hold in the second week of release, even though it will have some competition next weekend, and it'll also be Easter weekend as well, and so that will already have an impact on the box office too. Also, have you seen Ambulance? Do you think that the number should be better than what it is? Do you think it's worth going to see? Again, I will have some thoughts on that tomorrow after I come out of my IMAX showing. And Morbius, are you surprised that this film is kind of just lackluster, not expected to do a whole lot, and could even potentially be a financial failure? We'll have to wait and see what those numbers are, and I will be following that as the days go by. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about that and anything else I mentioned in the comment section down below. Also, please make sure you have a blessed Palm Sunday and a blessed Holy Week. Yes, indeed, Holy Week is already upon us, which is insane. But thank you all very much for listening, for smashing the like button, lighting up that fire button on Odyssey. Y'all all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed Sunday, blessed Palm Sunday. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my April Patreon, Subscribestar, and Locals members. Starting off with Patreon with Animation Commentator, Brandon, let's go Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Father Christopher Miller, Hail to you Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, Hymir Ari Hymeson, Inflamed Wood, Jacob from Holland, Jeff Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyle 79, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Priscilla Hall, Rosella Allen, Stan Andrian, Miss Martin Muses, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, and Tina B., the Empress of the Universe. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Patreon. And also to my Subscribestar peeps, Matt317, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stand 4, John B., Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alice McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. And also a huge shout out to my Locals members, starting off with Kara Tharp, K Tharp 56. Also, UAB, Mad Dog, Mike Jackson, Robert Barnes, and also a huge support as well to Brett D90. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Locals. Thank you again to everyone for supporting the channel. Please, if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, go ahead and check out the top link at the video description. It is my Willow link, as I like to describe it, and it brings you to a link tree where you get access to all of these different locations, as well as all of the various social media platforms that you can follow me on. If you join at the Citizen of Asgard level, you get your name shouted out at the end of every single live stream and video. Army of Asgard level gets you that, plus you get access to a giveaways channel that I have on Discord. If you ever don't have access to that giveaways channel, please contact me. I do send out the link to the Discord and with the instructions on it at the beginning of every single month. But if you don't have access to that giveaways channel where I'm giving away 4Ks and Blu-rays and all that kind of stuff, as much as I possibly can give away is available there. Please just reach out to me and I will gladly walk you through the process to make sure you get access to that giveaways channel. And again, that is, Army of Asgard level, whether you be on Patreon, Subscribe Star, or on Locals. Also, if you are the keeper of the Bifrost level, you get access to all of that. Plus, you get access to a podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger. We try and do it once or twice a month. I think we're going to try and do it twice this month to make up for some miscommunication that we had last month. So be on the lookout for that, and look out for those podcast Q&A posts that are always available on the Patreon main page, the Subscribe Star main page, on the YouTube side of things as well. The YouTube community tab, you'll always find the podcast Q&A there, and also on the Locals page as well. And if you join at the Chosen of Valhalla level, the highest of the levels, you get access to all of that. Plus, if it's your first month, you get a free t-shirt, any t-shirt you want from my Teespring, my TeePublic, whichever one you want to get it from. You just let me know the size, location I'm sending it to, color, that kind of stuff. You get it sent to you. Plus, you get to be featured once a month on the Chosen of Valhalla live stream, where we all come together and just talk about movies and really anything the Chosen want to talk about, and it is a lot of fun. Anyway, thank you all very much for your love and for your support. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.